Have you ever read A Streetcar Named Desire in school and thought, wow, New Orleans sounds really fascinating? It is a famous play by Tennessee Williams featuring the wonderful, diverse, eclectic city of New Orleans. So that is exactly where I am today. I've been wanting to come here for the past 15 odd years and finally have gotten a chance to do just that. New Orleans for me has always been this mysterious, soulful place full of music, art, inspiration, incredible people, wonderful history. So today I am going to explore all of those things. I am starting my journey in the French Quarter, so this is the heart and soul of New Orleans, where there are a lot of different histories mixed together. New Orleans having been established in the 18th century and then belonged to the Spanish and to the French before becoming part of the US in the early 19th century. So I feel that this area of New Orleans is the perfect mix between all those different cultures coming together in the form of architecture, in the form of St. Louis Church, which I'll show you right now, which is the oldest church in continuous use in the entire country of the US, and obviously a lot of colonial buildings, a lot of traditions, a lot of local foods, and a lot of music, which I'm sure you can hear in the background. I am super excited. This is absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to show you guys everything that I've got planned, and it is quite a lot. So stay with me and I'm sure we'll have fun. This is exactly how I imagine New Orleans. Famous traditional balconies, fire escapes going down, a lot of colorful buildings. Intense heat, as my cameraman just pointed out. The only thing this street is missing at the moment is some nice jazz music in the background. What you just saw there is the oldest continuously operating streetcar line in the world since 1835. Whenever I see these streetcars, once again, all I can think of is A Streetcar Named Desire, and there did actually used to be a line called the Desire Line, but that is no longer operational, unfortunately. But yeah, really, really cool. Very funky. They pass around all the time in the center, so you have a very high probability of seeing them if you walk around New Orleans. I am on Canal Street, which is the main big street in the center of New Orleans. Here you'll find a lot of hotels, office buildings, bars, shops. From what I gather, this is not the busiest time because it is a Saturday morning, so most people are still asleep, judging by the amount of jazz bars and just the amount of nightlife going on in the city. What I'm noticing on Canal Street is obviously a lot of life and a lot of streetcars passing by, which is really cool, and also unfortunately a lot of homelessness. And this is something I've noticed just by walking around in New Orleans. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, who don't have a home, a lot of people who are dependent on substances. And so in that way it reminds me a little bit of San Francisco, but I actually prefer New Orleans to San Francisco because aside from that, there's just so much soul and so much life and so much creativity and kindness as well. Everyone is nice and kind, and you never feel harassed or you never feel any aggression from people out here on the streets. So there you have it, an empty Canal Street for you. Something that doesn't happen often here, I imagine. Something that I wasn't expecting was very, very tall buildings. I don't know why, I just always imagine New Orleans to have a series of low buildings as opposed to tall skyscraper looking buildings. I think that's just the image that we get from the books that we read and what we see in pop culture. But actually there are 400,000 people living in the city, so it makes sense for there to be a tall office building, commercial complexes, and so on. totally see why. It explores medicine in the Victorian era and was originally built and constructed by the first licensed doctor in the US in the Victorian era. So this should be really interesting. I'm walking around here and I'm looking at some of the things they used to use, and this is only what, 200 years ago? And I'm thinking, well, surely this can't be safe, giving opium to patients who have a cough, or not sterilizing baby bottles properly and then having a bunch of consequent deaths in infants. But then again, I think in 200 years, are people going to look at our medicine and think the same? It seems like we almost have this cockiness about modern science and modern medicine, but then again, it always keeps evolving. So surely there must be something that we're doing now that we think is at the height of innovation, and actually in 200 years, people are going to look back and think, well, that was pretty silly. I have never seen so many spices and spicy things in one place in my entire life, not even in India. And I always keep saying that I have a very weak palate because I can't take spice. So I'm definitely in the very wrong place for me. But this is very much New Orleans because their cuisine, which is traditionally Creole, does have a lot of spices to it. Just look at this. This would be a heaven for somebody who's into their chilies, into their Cajun, into their hot sauces. Yeah, very impressive. Not buying anything here today just because I would probably die, but it's nice to have a look around. There was someone trying a hot sauce there and he had to sign a waiver because it was so spicy. I think they were scared he was just gonna pass out. And he tried it. He said the flavor was excellent, but he made the rookie mistake of breathing in straight after he ate it. Good thing I walked away and I did not make the same mistake, because I would have definitely have ended up in a New Orleans hospital after that. Just exploring Lafayette Square. It's really nice that all over the center of the city they've got these little pockets of greenery, these little courtyards, squares. This obviously being one of them. You can hear birds in the background, and also it's shady, which is nice for me, but even nicer for my cameraman who can't stand the heat at this point. We were just actually discussing Hurricane Katrina, which happened here in 2005, and how it completely devastated the city. People lived outside of the city center for a very long time until their homes had to be rebuilt. Now obviously you can't see evidence of the damage that much anymore, but there's still a lot of mention of the hurricane, as it wasn't even that long ago. It was what, 17 years ago, and people still very much remember it and remember the trauma that it caused to New Orleans. Thought I would try something traditional for lunch. Gone for a seafood gumbo. I like it. The flavors are really nice. So obviously the dessert also has to be local and traditional. Ooh, this is warm. These are called beignets, and you will see them everywhere here in New Orleans. Look. This is a praline sauce. I'm done. I'm done. If you need me, I will be in New Orleans. I have here now. What I've noticed throughout my travels in the US this time around is that this part of the country is very much into certain types of alcohols. So like bourbons, gins, whiskeys. And so it turns out that one of the world's oldest cocktails made from those kinds of alcohols is right here in New Orleans. It's called Sazerac, and there's a whole museum dedicated to it, which I'm about to show you right now.
Sazerac Ryan here. Peychaud's bitters, sugar, and just a touch of water. And it gets strained into the glass that you chill ahead of time and coat with herb saint. Remember, herb saint is what replaced absinthe. After absinthe was banned, herb saint came out just after Prohibition. So traditionally they would pour a little herb saint in the glass, swirl it around, dump out the excess. And the final touch is a lemon twist. So this is going to be pretty potent when you first get it. You want to just take a sip, roll it around your tongue for a few seconds, let your palate adjust to it. And then each sip after that is going to smooth out and become more and more balanced as you go.
People are gonna kill me for saying this, but this tastes a bit like medicine. And not the good kind. And in a space of 3 days, this is the second distillery that I go to. I'll link the video above for the St. Augustine one that I visited. So this is very unlike me, but I'm enjoying the new experiences. Well, it's not often that you find an experience like that totally free, but this one surprisingly was. And what I learned from that is obviously Sazerac has a lot of components in it, a lot of different things like whiskeys, bourbons, and a bunch of other ingredients, but the most important one is New Orleans. It played such a big part in the culture here, and such a big part in the lifestyle that you almost can't separate the Sazerac from the place that it played such a big influence on. Kept seeing guys in red dresses all over the city, had no idea what it was about until I finally got the courage to actually ask, and it turns out it is the only weekend of the year that I unknowingly choose to come to New Orleans. What are the odds?
Red Dress Run is an annual event of the sea of people in red dresses, and it's a lot of fun, and y'all should come.
The dress looks absolutely stunning on you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
What's your favorite feature of the dress?
The feature, I'm learning how to tie knots, and you gotta make it comfortable. It's, I had 3 sisters, and I had some help.
The afternoon is a perfect time to go on a little tour of the Garden District in New Orleans, which is famous for opulent mansions lining the green streets. It's all very luxurious and definitely quite historical as well. So I'm gonna stop at a few little checkpoints to show you some of the most famous houses in the area. The first one being the Buckner Mansion, which is right behind me. Already I am pretty much floored by what I'm seeing, so I'm sure that what is to come is even more impressive. First stop is the Robinson Mansion, which was purchased by a tobacco merchant in 1857. You can see how grand it is, and it definitely stands out amongst everything else here, even though I have to say every house does stand on its own regardless. There's just so much detailing involved in the architecture and the design. It's definitely my kind of style because it's opulent, but there's just so many quirks to it. So it's got this creative flair about it. Another thing that I noticed in New Orleans is how they write the street names on the pavement with a really artsy font. It's just something that caught my eye. And speaking of artsy, I'm now approaching the Greek Revival Mansion in the Garden District, which is known as the Gogh Mansion. The Van Gogh virtual exhibition has been making its rounds all around the world. I've kind of had my eye on it, but have never found the time or the right place to go. But since I'm in New Orleans and since it's on here, I figured why not? I'll take you guys through the immersive side of things because I think that's the most interesting, and I'll also show you some of his self-portraits that I think are quite cool. He's not one of my favorite painters. I much prefer someone like Salvador Dali, but I do think that his story is worth talking about, and definitely the immersive experience is really well suited to his art. Now the hotel where I'm staying, wow, that is a whole other story, and it's called Maison de la Luz, which translates to House of Light. Came out just for sunset, walked along the French Quarter a little bit, then came out right to the river. The light is absolutely stunning. I'm still trying to process everything I've seen today, still trying to make up my mind about how I would classify New Orleans. So far it's been really difficult because it has that weird mix of everything, almost incomprehensible unless you're here and you can take it in as a sensory experience. It's certainly very artsy, creative, and musical, I'll give them that. And speaking of musical, there's something I've always wanted to try, specifically here in New Orleans, so I think this is the perfect opportunity to go and do just that. Bourbon Street, to anyone who's wondering. Bourbon Street is famous for jazz bars, restaurants, cafes, all lining it, making a lot of noise, creating an amazing nightlife scene for locals and tourists. The smell that best describes Bourbon Street is very strong marijuana, but other than that, it's just a really nice, lively vibe. Just a lot of fun, basically, and a lot of different people. You can tell that the locals come here just as much as people that come from abroad, and it seems like a never-ending street. You almost feel like you've reached the end every single time there's a crossing, but it keeps going on and on and on. If you haven't guessed yet, going to a jazz bar is the thing that I really wanted to do in New Orleans. Obviously Bourbon Street being the crazy, hectic, busy environment that it is, I would much rather prefer to pick Frenchmen Street for that activity, for going to the jazz bar. Frenchmen Street is just a little bit outside of the center, not very close to Bourbon Street, so you would have to take a car to get here. It's about 10 minutes by Uber, and there's still quite a lot of choice when it comes to jazz bars and places to eat. There's even a cute little outdoor art market. So I'm really glad that I decided to come here, and now I can compare Frenchmen and Bourbon Streets, which are the two most famous jazz streets in all of New Orleans. across on camera, but I was just saying how that was one of the best voices I have ever heard in my entire life. That woman did not even need a microphone. That is the amount of power that she had in her natural voice. What a talent. There are very few people who are world famous who have her sort of voice, I feel, and the way that she was connected with the music and with her band, I think you can only find that in places like this, in really authentic places where you live and breathe the music, which she clearly does. So I am very, very happy I came. That was absolutely extraordinary. Good morning. Today is a day like no other because I am heading slightly out of New Orleans to try out a very, very new activity for me. One that I've been looking forward to because it's unlike anything else that I've ever done in my entire life. So I think that you're going to enjoy this. A little bit about my feelings towards New Orleans before we get there. I found New Orleans absolutely amazing, partly because of their flair for celebration. And I'm not only talking about celebration when it comes to the Mardi Gras festival, which is obviously a very famous event there every year. I'm just talking about their daily way of celebrating life. Like, everything is just a big positive event to them, be it, you know, going out in a red dress just because, or going to a jazz bar, or celebrating life through music, or celebrating life through their alcohols, creations, distilleries, the food. I mean, everything is just really happy and positive, and it's filled with kindness and celebration, and it just makes you appreciate things a lot more, and it makes you really happy. That is my conclusion of New Orleans, and the activity that we're going to do now is going to be something completely different, so I think you should stick around. I finally arrived at my destination, which happens to be the Atchafalaya swamp, which is the largest network of swampland in all of the US. And what I'm going to be doing here is, as I mentioned before, totally different to anything I've ever done, and that includes an airboat tour. I'm hoping to see some alligators, I'm hoping to see some birds, I'm hoping to see things that I have never seen before. Can't hear a thing? Off we go. Just got back, and what can I say? Sometimes the best things are totally unplanned. This is an activity that I didn't actually plan before the road trip started, and up until about 2 days ago I didn't even know what an airboat was. But now that I've experienced it, and now that I've seen the biggest swamp in the United States, I can say that it has totally surpassed my expectations. When I heard the word swamp, I expected there to be brown, muckish waters and not a lot of life, but it is actually the complete opposite. There's life everywhere you look. There are birds, there are alligators, there are insects. Everything is buzzing and booming. And what the guide was telling us about the water fluctuations being up to 15 feet, which is 3 times my height basically, is also quite impressive, and it just shows you how much nature changes and how much of a cycle there is to these things, which is also something that I've come to appreciate during this tour. I think this is where my vlog ends. Thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing. If you're new, welcome to my channel, and if you are not, I hope to see you for the next vlog, which will also be in the United States.
She can sing now.
What?
What?
Totally noise cancelling.
So noise cancelling?
Totally noise cancelling. I can't hear a
She
thing.
can't sing very well, that's why.
What'd you say?
You'll find out later.
I'm trying to read your lips. I would be a terrible deaf person.
Sing!
Ah!